just walking through this forest. Again, a place of peace. And listening to the podcast by Rangan Chatterjee, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, and Oliver Burke. I think he's written a book, a bestseller, which sounds fascinating, about 4 weeks. Essentially sounds like to be more present and productive for the things that count for you. And it's funny, just recently I've thought about that. What are we chasing in all our goals? Of course we have to survive and ideally thrive, but thriving to me is to be fully here, as many moments with the people I love, including myself, self-compassion, to be present for oneself. And it does become clear with all of the competing pressures that it's very hard to do that, particularly with the way that we are continually being bombarded with information or allowing ourselves to get engaged. I am very guilty of that myself, especially with smartphones and social media. I'm recording this right now and we'll be putting this on social media. One of the wonderful things about my vlog series is that very few people watch it, which gives me this creative ability to just explore, adventure, and wander in thoughts and philosophies that are close to my heart. So just recently, I was fortunate enough to go to a meeting about digital health and some pretty cool leaders in the field, amazing people, and at an energetic level, it was fantastic because I could feel the resonance, the vibrations of people who want to do good in the world and make a difference in health. And that is the kind of innovation that actually initially took me off the beaten track to actually go to Sri Lanka, the country of my origin, in order to directly help where I felt there was a need after the tsunami in 2006, a year or so after the onslaught, and also a personal journey to explore a culture that is very much embedded into me, Eastern culture, but it hadn't really lived up until that point. And here I am, years later, in a Nordic culture, which I'm only starting to scratch the surface of, and it's been quite an awakening. The wisdom of this place, these people, understanding the languages, the cultures, even though I've been exposed and been interested before, certain things are settling after the, you could say, the snowstorm of life, of shifting. So a lot of people say to me, where is this going? I guess where did it come from is really the answer to what I can put there. Is it came from the podcast with Oliver Burke and Rangan Chatterjee. And it was essentially the contemplation, I would say, of doing more by doing less, which was a book I read once by Mark Lesser. I think it was called Less. Doing more by doing less, which is a hard thing for highly driven, productive people, but that has been the path of my life, or choosing against the odds. To stop and notice, and some accelerated moments in that was the practice of mindfulness, particularly Vipassana, doing a 10-day retreat, and in the forest, or the jungle at that point, initially in Sri Lanka, but later in sort of the bush of Australia, the second time I did it. And I remember doing these retreats, and the most incredible thing about them was you actually were, in material terms, achieving nothing. There was no sort of external productivity you could argue, well, you're going to personally develop, become a better person. And actually talking at the time, sometimes to my senior medical colleagues, they were all interested in this because of the intellectual attribution of benefit. You know, research shows it helps your mind, stress, all these sort of things. But actually to do it, which is the way I was doing it, in an exploratory way, I would say, not because it was going to bring me benefit, because I was brought up that way, and essentially I realized I was doing it because there's this whole concept of the truths of Buddhist philosophy, which is that the material world, as beautiful as it is on a sunny day like this, maybe different on a rainy day, but still as beautiful as it is, it doesn't bring you ongoing peace. It's unsatisfactory, actually, the material world. So there was a quest to say, well, look, is there a way for a more satisfactory existence? And there's a path, and that path can involve this practice of mindfulness. So it was an exploration, and I guess ultimately maybe there was a goal and an enlightenment, to be free of suffering. This was maybe it was a subconscious goal that was instilled in me, or maybe it was something I resonated with, because there's plenty of people who are brought up with that philosophy but don't seem to resonate with it. Maybe, I don't know. I would say, very truthful, honest. It's always been something that made sense to me, to be honest, and definitely it resonates higher than anything else. So when I was searching for purpose, or my purpose, I knew it was to be at peace with myself. And that was a time when there was a lot of conflict in my life. Medical training, being knocked back at a training position, relationship breakdowns at the time, going to a country that was at war, which caused me great anguish because I could see the love in the people of all sides. And that conflict was what I wanted to overcome. And that became the whole goal. Initially it was world peace, but later it was about realizing the first step to that, if that is at all possible, was inner peace. Actually, when you realize, or when I realized that, I realized that, that's the only thing I could actually control, and made sense, because by doing that, I was going to affect change around me, which was a paradoxical realization, particularly when I'd been so driven for achieving things academically, even in life, status and, a livelihood and recognition and respect from your loved ones, community. These are all the social narratives that we all are struggling with, or challenged by, I would say. And when you let go of those things, actually there's a freedom, and then there's an opportunity to pursue the path you want. So I guess the Rangan Chatterjee and Oliver Burke podcast was quite impactful. I'm only halfway through it. The book would be even better, but it does resonate because it made me think, okay, I'm going to do a presentation soon, and I thought I'll do a 2-minute guided meditation, and it seems like, well, this is ludicrous, but I've done this before to a whole bunch of quite senior healthcare leaders in international conferences in Australia. I haven't done it here, and at the time it always felt a bit strange because I knew that it's not perhaps for everyone, but actually I think stopping and valuing our presence is more important now than ever before, certainly in my life, and it is in alignment with my ultimate goal, which is to be at peace and to help others be at peace. So I don't know. That's the one thing I know, is that I don't know, but I am aware and always learning. So I'll leave that